I edit video off of a remote server at work, and we use a company called LucidLink to do that. So I've been working at my job for about 5 years now, and in 2019 when I started, we were editing directly off of hard drives. And these things are massive. They're like made of metal because they're like pro grade and stuff. And we would be like, passing projects from one person to the next by handing them like, here's a whole hard drive, or let me copy 500 gigabytes of a project to your drive before you can start working. And when COVID hit, it just really was not working. There were times when we were driving to each other's houses and doing like handoffs of like, well, this drive has this project on it and you'll need to reference that. And like, it was just a crazy hurdle that wasn't worth it. So right around this time, companies like LucidLink start becoming popular, and they have a pretty good product, honestly, where I'm able to edit and it feels like I am more or less working off of a hard drive and it's all in the cloud. When I go on my computer to the drive, it tells me that there's over a petabyte free on this virtual drive. And from what I've been told is that it is truly unlimited. It just has to show a number and it just picks 1.13 petabytes or something. But it was all working out really well until they got hacked last week.
Ooh.
So they had, I guess, 5,000 servers, one of those being ours, that were just unable to be accessed. There was some sort of issue with like metadata where people's like signature key that let them access the drives got like corrupted or changed. So half of my company could not access our server. And I was one of, I think, the 2 people who was able to get on this server. And, so I was able to do work. And like the good news is that, the data was all encrypted. So we lost nothing. Nothing was taken from us. There was no data corruption issues. And it took them about like 2 days to get back to, everything back functioning and things. So ultimately, we didn't take that much of a hit from this. It wasn't ransomware, but LucidLink had sent out an update to anybody affected by this because this is a widely used industry thing at this point. I'm sure there's probably at least 1 or 2 movies that were affected by this outage. And so they sent out like an update the other day, and they said like, here's everything we know about what happened. And they said like, it was a malicious person. Somebody did do this intentionally to harm others. It wasn't just like a glitch. And that they are partnering with the FBI to try and identify who caused this. And I don't know how, I don't know if they're going to catch the person or not, but if the FBI does struggle to find out, this issue, I do know a forensics company that they can call for help. Target. Like the store.
Target, the forensics company store.
Yes. Target has a forensics division better than most police departments.
No.
Yes. And, like most retail stores, Target cares about loss prevention, as they call it. So whether it is a customer stealing things or an employee stealing things, or even just like products that get damaged and stuff, like they are trying to keep that number as low as possible. And one of the ways they do this is by installing things like security cameras. So 25 years ago or so, like they started, I think they had security cameras even in the 80s.
Sure.
But like around turn of the century, they developed a forensics lab in Minneapolis where they're headquartered at. And the goal was they wanted to help analyze the security cameras in order to be able to like better, have people who are able to look at the data and be able to help catch more shoplifters, basically. And then they started branching into solving murders and arson because they did some pro bono work for, there was an arson that happened in the Houston area where there were 2 high school boys, and they went to a gas station and they were buying gas to like set a building on fire, I guess. I don't know. I've never committed arson. But I guess that this was still back on a tape that it was recording to, and the tape was slightly damaged. So the FBI, like they were trying to like repair the tape well enough so they can make out the faces and identify and say, here are the people that set the building on fire. So they go to NASA, and NASA's like, I don't know, it's over our heads. So then they go to Target, and I guess they just yell enhance at, at the screens until they are able to make out the faces. They bring the school principal in, and he's like, yeah, those are definitely these 2 kids. And they identified the people who committed the arson. And they have helped out with so many cases because this spread like wildfire. Like police departments and other like, government agencies are like, oh man, we need, we're going to go to Target
Like, well,
for all
guys,
this.
just ask Target.
Right.
They can do it.
Exactly. So then they had to put in like a policy in place where they're like, we only will do violent felonies because like we need to make this worth our time because you're not paying us basically to do it. And like, I don't know if this makes them cool, like they're vigilante crime fighters. Like, I don't know if this makes them like Batman or if they're just narcs. But as crazy as it is to say, I had a similar situation in college that I may have told you at some point about. But for the listeners, when I was in college, my PlayStation 4 was stolen. And we were talking earlier today, and you said that you had a PlayStation 4 that was stolen.
I did.
So very common thing, I guess. So it was stolen out of my college apartment. And then several months go by, and my Netflix watch history starts getting really weird. And like one of the funny things that I learned about Netflix is that you can go on their website and you can pull the IP addresses of every device that logs into your account. So I was able to go on Netflix's site, find the IP address, see the town and the internet provider that the person had who was watching it.
Wow.
And I went to the police and I said, here is everything I'm legally allowed to do. You should get a subpoena from the ISP and you'll find the person who stole my PS4. And it turned out it was a 13-year-old boy who got this used for Christmas. So he didn't steal it.
Oh,
but
like his parents or grandparents or whoever gave it to him, brother, sister.
Bought it from a used game store that didn't wipe it when the guy who stole it from me sold it to buy an engagement ring for his girlfriend.
Wow.
That's what it was. And
so you found out who that was too.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I don't harbor any ill will at this point. Like it was someone who I knew of, but there wasn't like much of a personal connection. I'm sure. I am sure it was just because it was convenient and it was there.
Yeah.
I did find out that Amy used to hang out with a youth group with this guy.
Oh, okay.
So that was a funny connection many years down the road. But like it was, I finally got the PS4 back, and the detective who works, the Mount Vernon detective, was like, hey, you should consider maybe a career in like, in forensics or like in being an investigator. And I'm like, dude, I just graduated with a different degree. You should have told me this years ago.
That's funny.
But like sometimes I do think about my future career kind of like it is a video game character creation menu or like a tech tree or something along those lines, where like I can keep going down the route I currently am in video production, and we'll call that one the warrior, I guess.
Sure.
And I've also considered becoming a college professor at points, and like who knows, maybe I'll do that in the future, and that's pretty clearly the mage. But I always wonder if maybe I should play the rogue class and become a private investigator. And I have some time until I guess I'm locked into my character class for the rest of my career. But if I do decide to go down that route, maybe I can turn to the men and women in red polos and khaki pants for some advice on how to fight crime.
Welcome to the Factoid Podcast. You didn't ask for it, but we're going to tell you anyway. My name's Chris Humphreys.
And I'm Payton Gessel.
Now, Payton, we all go through phases in life. You do this, I do this. And when I say phases, I'm not talking about like whole life phases really at this point. And that's a real thing too, I think. I'm talking about we go through phases of what we partake in, right? The media we watch, the books we read, the things we do, the stuff we're interested in. And we've all gone through these phases. And my dad went through this phase when I was like probably 10 to 12 years old, 12 years old. He went through this Judge Judy phase. Have you ever seen Judge Judy?
Yeah, there's a guy I went to high school with who I think got on Judge Judy. I don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this was after we had graduated. I don't know. I think I found like a clip of the episode. I know that there's like weird things with how you get on that show, but I do not know.
So I don't know. I don't know that much about the show. All I know is it is an entertaining show. And when I say he went through a phase, I mean, we had Dish at the time. So I think it's called Dish DVR, right? And you could there was new episodes basically every single day. My dad would record it. At home, he'd come home from work. Maybe we'd eat, maybe we wouldn't. He would sit on his chair. We'd watch Judge Judy. And she's a funny personality. Like just she's like can be real, like she can almost be kind, like, and like really care and compassionate about people, but she also can be like super snarky and rude. And it's just very funny. Mm-hmm. As an aside, did you know that Judge Judy, like to this day, is one of the highest paid television personalities of all time.
Whoa. I
So
had no
in her
idea.
prime, like we're talking 2015, 16, 17, 18, she would make, I'm not joking, she would make $49 million a year, and she records 1 day a week.
What?
Is that crazy?
How?
So she'd work 52 days a year and make almost $1 million a week.
I guess all the old people still watch her, right?
That's the thing. Her ratings must be insane. And Amazon bought her show like a few years ago.
Yeah, okay, I
and she
remember
has
that,
a judge.
yeah.
I don't know what it's called, but she has basically Judge Judy on Amazon now.
Yeah.
And she hasn't said what that contract is. Like, that's not public knowledge, but she was like, you know, there were negotiations. You know what I mean? So like, she's doing great, okay? But I just think that's crazy because like, out of all of the people on TV,
Yeah. You think
she is like one of the high. Like, think about, there's nobody who makes that much money in TV.
Yeah.
The movies, like the most famous movies, you don't pay the biggest actor in the biggest movie $50 million.
No.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. But my dad went through Judge Judy phase. I do like Judge Judy. In fact, I grew up watching lots of Judge shows. They're on in the middle of the day. I would go to my grandparents' house. They're kind of interesting. I've always enjoyed them. But that I want to talk to you about my phase recently, also, which is not the same. But this is just for the sake of talking about us going through phases. I've got into trolling videos, and when I say trolling, I mean like pranks.
Okay,
You know?
I didn't know if you were gonna say pranks or like fishing.
Like troll? Oh no! Trolling as in like just I guess prank videos might be a better way to call
Yeah.
it. Comedy type stuff like that, but not just like stand up comedy, like where people do dumb stuff to other people, like Impractical Jokers, but different, right?
Yes, sure.
And so I got kind of into this. I would say again, I'm not necessarily as deep into this as I was, but I would say even a few years ago, one of my friends, Jordan's his name. I don't think he listens, but shout out to Jordan. He told me about this guy named Vlog Creations on YouTube. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
And this guy just does prank videos, and they are like, they're hysterical. Okay, so I mean, definitely recommend. I don't watch every video he posts anymore, but I watch them a lot, and every time I watch, like, I'm like crying laughing. They're very, very funny. And I just have always enjoyed watching that kind of thing. And I just sort of fell into this deep hole. And then there's all these, turns out with YouTube shorts and stuff. I watch YouTube shorts. With YouTube shorts and this short form content, it's easier to like find new stuff sometimes, right?
Mhm.
And I found this guy who's famous for like responding to emails from scammers and then just continuing the conversation. And it's hilarious. His name is James Veach. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
It sounds familiar, honestly.
You've seen, I'm sure you've seen his viral videos.
Yeah.
But he wrote a book called .con where he basically just like just like goes through all of these specific scenarios where he just describes them all. They're very funny. Again, book recommendation .con, very funny book. So my dad went through a Judge Judy phase. I went through a trolling phase. I still kind of am in there, right? We're watching it. And I found out something just this, I don't know, a few weeks ago, again, through YouTube Shorts, that is a perfect mixture of both my dad's phase of Judge Judy and my prank phase, okay? And this guy's name is Ben Palmer. I think he actually goes by online Ben Palmer Trolls. You know, right? But he's gotten famous for just doing random stuff. He started out on MySpace, like early mid 2000s, where that's what people did, right? That was a tiny bit before my time. I never had a MySpace. I don't think I was allowed to have a MySpace, honestly. I'm pretty sure my mom was like, no, social media or whatever.
I did, and Tom was not in my top 8. You know what I'm talking about? Was that his prank? His prank was pretending to be Tom and then friending him.
That's funny. No, but he got famous on MySpace. He just typed funny things. That's back when like text blogs, like that was funny, right? And
yes.
People started kind of following it.
You didn't have to try as hard to be a good meme.
No.
Like make a good meme.
No, people just kind of, if they found it, they found it. You know, it was different back then. You know, times were different. Times have changed. But he started on MySpace, and then when MySpace kind of fell off and Facebook started to come up, he did the same thing, and he kind of moved over, and his audience kind of moved over, and he would post funny things, and he would just basically post the funny stuff. But when he got on Facebook, he realized how much fun it could be to impersonate customer service reps for companies on Facebook. And so he's got a lot of content where he just is describing, like, he just makes an account called Target Customer Service Representative and someone complaining to Target, and he just responds in like ridiculous ways. It's very funny. It is still very funny. There's a lot of YouTube shorts. There's a lot of TikToks of this guy just like going through these. He has a stand-up routine where he just talks about this stuff. It's very funny. One of them, actually, he talks about how he'd racked up a bunch of tickets. He lived in Atlanta for quite a while. He racked up a bunch of parking tickets, and he didn't want to have to pay them all, so he created like a public Atlanta city of Facebook page. And he started posting just ridiculous things as the city. And he got enough attention that they were like, you have to stop doing this. And he was like, He says, "I'll stop doing this under the following conditions. My parking tickets are forgiven. You pay me $60." Like, it's just ridiculous stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it's very funny. Another one that I saw was very funny was, I don't remember the exact scenario, but basically it was like, you know how you get like sponsors ads from stores on Facebook.
Yeah.
And there was like a Home Depot one, and it was like a picture of an employee wearing some relatively offensive hat or shirt or something, and someone was like, "I always loved Home Depot, but I'm never going to be going back. I'll never return. I'm going to tell corporate about this." And so he makes a corporate Home Depot account, and he's like, "We don't care." Like, it's just very funny stuff like that, right? And people think it's real. It's very, very funny. He's a very funny guy. But what makes him so special, and what made me think of this as I was thinking about these phases that I and my father have went through, is that he is also famous for suing his friends on purpose just to get on court TV. And he didn't do it once or twice, but it worked 3 times for him.
Man.
Yeah, like, I know. And he apparently, there's like systems for how this works. And he talks about like the processes, like you said, the processes are kind of weird. It's different for every show, but like for the most part, they're real judges, but it's not necessarily the real legal system.
Yeah, because it's like it's not a civil case, but is it like Judge Judy like pays? Like, I felt like she like, does she buy your case or something weird?
I'm not exactly sure how it works, but from what I understand, for the ones he got on, I think he almost has to like sue his friend through the court show process, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Because like he was like, in his mind, he decided, the winner receives the amount of money that they're asking for. That's how the show works. They pay them that, right? And generally, they even pay the participants of the show to be on the show. And so he thought, if I can figure out how to sue my friends for an amount of money that's acceptable for a reason that may or may not be true, we can just split the money and it can be a fun story.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's what they did. But as I said, it's like you're getting sued. Maybe it's not through the real legal system, because he said it doesn't stay on your record or anything.
Oh.
It turns out, at least the way he did it, it doesn't stay on your record or anything. And so he ended up getting on Judge Alex twice and on Judge Joe Brown. The first time on Judge Alex, he was a witness and he won the case. That their side won the case. And like in the post-trial interview, he's like, "Oh, I'm just so glad I'm getting this money. We really need this money. I'm super excited." And like, it's obviously like a joke. It's like, it's obviously a joke. It's obviously a prank. But like, he then just goes around and gets on the exact same show again.
Man.
And he's playing different people. Like, he's not even playing the same guy. It's like they don't check if you're the person you say you are, or that you actually did the thing you say you did.
Oh,
but that's what
man.
he said. He said we went through this process with like different shows, and there are certain shows, I can't remember which one he said. Like, one of the shows was like, they wouldn't even entertain reading his application because they're like, this is obviously a joke. We don't do that. We take this more seriously. But apparently there are ones such as Judge Alex or Judge Joe Brown that take it slightly less seriously and care maybe a little bit more about the television aspect than they do about the real life aspect of the court case.
I love the idea of a court TV show having so high of standards that they don't accept.
Yeah, we will never entertain that.
We're the real fake court TV.
I'm not gonna lie, I like would still watch that. If I'm in a waiting room and that's on, I'm gonna be watching it because it's entertaining to watch.
I probably will go and watch some now.
Yeah, and actually, again, Kirsten and I went through a phase not that long ago. I don't know. I woke up in the middle of the night and she was watching Divorce Court, and which I don't think
very concerning.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
No, it's fine. It was unrelated, but she was like, it's just so entertaining. And then like, if you read the words, it's like, this is not an actual court. It just makes it seem like, why am I even watching this? But for some reason, it's entertaining.
Right. I mean, I will admit that I had a phase related to this as well, where when I was probably about 12 or 13, I would always, like, as an insult, I would tell someone like, I'm going to sue you. And eventually, like, my parents had to be like, you probably, like, do you even know what goes into like filing a lawsuit? I don't think you actually want to be telling people like, I'm going to sue. And whenever you're mad about something, someone's going to take you seriously and they're going to beat you up. Right?
Yeah. It's a good insult, right?
Yeah.
But might be even better. I'm going to take you on Judge Joe Brown.
Yes.
We're going to go. But yeah, he, like I said, he was on Judge Alex twice. Okay. The first time he was a witness for someone who was claiming to be a promoter who was supposed to be promoting something or whatever. And the second time, it was like the same thing from what I understand. Like it was about a promoter and someone like, oh, I paid this guy to do it. But he was like the opposite person. It's just like ridiculous stuff. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. But like it successfully worked. There's very funny stories about it. You can find this guy online. He's actually pretty popular. I think he's got, I mean, he's like near 1 million followers. Like he's pretty popular, very entertaining. He does a lot more stuff that's very funny. I don't know that I can necessarily, recommend all of it. I don't know, but
there's probably something you don't want to recommend.
Yeah, there probably is, but he is just, it's very funny. And when I found out, like I somehow stumbled across, oh, like, is that real? And it's not only like, it's not just a joke. Like that's what's funny about this guy is what I've learned is like the stuff that he says he does, he actually did them. It's not just like a funny stand-up routine. It's like, these are like things that I have done because they're really funny.
Right.
And I just thought that it was just too perfect. Like I guess I just appreciate and respect the dedication. Like the dedication to the craft of like, I'm going to do it just so I can say I did it because that's what I do. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I appreciate
love commitment like that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And it seems like very legitimate. And sure, he did it to be funny. He did it to have the story. But it kind of also seems like at the time he might have done it for the money too. Like, I don't know if that's a joke or not. That's what I can't tell. I'm like, I don't know if that's a joke or if that's real. I don't know. But yeah, they would just split the money and do it. So I guess if you need quick cash and you're willing to go a little bit out of your way for it, just sue your friends and get on court TV. I hear there's money.
Do you have any reoccurring dreams or nightmares?
I don't currently. I did have a dream that I remember. I don't know how many times I had it, but I had it enough times that I remember. I'm laughing right now because of the dream I'm about to tell you. Because thinking about it, it is quite ridiculous. But when I was growing up, I'm going to say I was young. Like we're talking maybe 8 years old to 12 years old, roughly. I had a dream where I had a nose like the character Doug from Doug. Have you seen
Yes.
Doug? And I used to play, this is a side note, I used to play the game Barbie Detective on the computer with my sister.
Yeah.
And how this works is like you're Barbie and you walk around and you're trying to solve this case. And if you ever like stumble upon the mystery person who's doing it in the game, you just see like this black trench coat silhouette and it like you just see it for a second. And so in that dream where I have a nose like Doug, I woke up before it happened every time, but the silhouette the black silhouette like trench coat character from Barbie Detective, I know it's ridiculous, like comes up to me and they have an axe and but it's like upside down and they're like undercut swinging it and they're going to go right in between my two front teeth. And every time before they makes contact, I wake up. And I know that's ridiculous, but that probably happened to me. If anyone's out there like knows how to figure out psychology stuff, let me know what's wrong with me. Cause I had that dream like, I would say at least 10 times in my life.
Wow.
So that was a reoccurring one, but not for a while. I haven't had one.
At least no one will accuse you of making that up.
No, that's real. I mean, I'm telling you right now, it was vivid enough that I still remember that, like very clearly.
For sure.
I was terrified. And then I'd wake up and be like, that's ridiculous.
My teeth?
I literally, I would feel them. I think I was going through some weird self-conscious thing about my teeth falling out or something.
Yeah, well, so that's funny that you say that because my current like recurring dream is my teeth falling out, which is a very common dream apparently.
Really?
I did not look up what that means in my life. I think what it really means is that I wear retainers about every 2 nights, and I think my theory is that my tongue is like clicking the retainer, and that in my brain says you just ripped out half of your whole top row of teeth and you're a shark and you just had like another row of teeth under your row of teeth and things like that. So I get those like once every, I don't know, couple of months. I've been having those for years. One of the ones that I had a lot when I was younger, which I don't think I've had in a few years now though, is that I'm standing in my yard, a tornado is coming for us, and my legs don't work. Which I'm told that like the legs not working thing is also like a pretty common thing. But like, you know, I would have this a lot, and I think what probably brought this on was watching the movie Twister.
Sure.
Yeah, like, you know, I probably watched that a little bit younger, and like it felt more like a horror movie and then like I watched it again as an adult, and I thought like this is like a fun action adventure,
it's like an intense like thriller action.
Yes, like this is a, you know, how could 7-year-old me or whatever age I was like have been like that afraid that my entire house was going to get blown down.
There's a new one coming out. Did you know that?
Yeah, Twisters.
Yeah, Twisters.
Because
Yeah.
I saw like the trailer and there's a guy who yells like, "We got twins!"
I kind of like want to see that. That would be interesting.
I kind of do too.
Yeah.
Maybe we should go watch it.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it comes out in July. But I guess 2 months ago, though, my dreams were interrupted by a tornado.
Wow.
At 5 a.m., we woke up to sirens. The emergency alerts didn't hit our phones for some reason, but we woke up to the sound of the sirens and the sound of just how intense the rain was at our house. And there was a sighting of a tornado west of us somewhere, and it was heading right in our general direction. So Amy and I wake up, we go down to the basement. Conveniently enough, our sleeping bags are down there, so we just like set up all of our camping equipment and just like, if we're going to be here for a half hour to an hour, we don't want to just lay on the hard floor.
Right.
So like we do that. We're hanging out for a while. I'm waiting for the roof to get blown off, and I see the cow going by or whatever, and then like nothing really happens, and then we just go back to sleep upstairs. The tornado warning expires. I sleep for another hour or two before I have to wake up to go to work. And everybody I work with had the exact same scenario. So like everyone was tired that day.
Yeah.
But like when I drive to work, there's maybe like one little twig or stick in the middle of the street, and I don't really see any damage. And then like a week later, more tornadoes. And then a few weeks after that, more tornadoes.
Yeah. It's been kind of wild around here.
3 days ago, more tornadoes. Ohio, at the rate we're going, is on its way to a record year for tornadoes. And earlier this year, we had more tornadoes than all of Tornado Alley combined.
Wow.
They have since caught up. I mean, they're called that for a reason. But for a while, though, like we were, leading the nation in this. But just about every time there's a tornado, this strange thing happens. It's on its way to Columbus, and then it just appears to never make it to Columbus. And I found myself taking my first tornado in town a lot more seriously than everyone else. Like in my first apartment in town, I was on the second floor, so I had nowhere to shelter. So I called my friend up who had a basement. I'm like, "Hey, can I come over?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure. Like we'll be down here too." But then like when we're down there, he just kind of like casually mentions that, well, I mean, we're immune to tornadoes in Columbus. And then in the last couple of months, I keep hearing people say like, well, we don't get them. Like we are immune to tornadoes in the city. Have you ever heard of anyone say this?
Not that I know of. I've heard that like about specific places before. People are like, "Oh, we just don't really get them. They always go around." But I've never heard about Columbus. But I suppose it's because I don't live in Columbus, probably.
Sure. But like, yeah, I guess I've been collecting all of the reasons that I've been hearing as to why they don't get us in Columbus. So here are 5 that I wanted to talk about. So the first one, tornadoes can't climb hills. The second one, they can't cross the I-270 outer belt.
Interesting.
Our tall buildings protect us. We have a heat shield that protects us.
A heat shield.
Or my favorite, it's because of all them darn roundabouts they're building in town.
You just get confused.
Right, yeah, they just go in circles.
Yeah.
So, I decided to look into this just to better understand why I'm around maybe 1 or 2 tornado warnings per year, but thankfully never just see like houses decimated and just massive devastation despite that. So I needed to learn about how tornadoes form, or as they call it in the biz, tornado genesis.
Tornado genesis.
Which sounds very cool.
Yeah.
Coming this summer, tornado genesis.
That's right.
And who better to help me learn about this than a local weatherman?
Yes.
Andrew Buck Michael is a meteorologist for ABC6 on Good Day Columbus. And I had the pleasure of talking with Buck the other day, and he did such a great job of answering all my tornado questions. And also, he's just a really fun guy to chat with. My friend Jordan actually works with him, and she kind of helped set us up.
That's
and
cool.
Like, she had nothing but great things to say about him, and they were definitely true. So let me go back through that list we mentioned earlier, though. We'll say from least plausible to most plausible. Buck was the one who actually told me about the roundabout. And I don't even know how to like give a serious answer as to why that one isn't true. So we're going to skip that.
Okay.
So the next would be the 270 outer belt in the tall buildings, just because they're kind of like man-made structure, tall kind of category. And, one thing that I hadn't really thought about is that, weather is so much taller than buildings, but when you're relatively short compared to the weather, like everything looks tall when you're an ant, right? So Buck had mentioned that there was like a lot of hail during the storm on Tuesday, which thankfully we didn't have any. I don't think we even had any hail damage. I don't know if we even got hail at our house, but like the core of that hail formation, it was forming at 40,000 feet in
Wow.
the air. And the tallest building in Columbus is 624 feet.
Oh, wow.
So if you think about like an object that big that's coming through, do you think that this little skyscraper
Is that going to make a difference?
right? And like our skyline, like it kind of sucks. I mean, like compared to other cities our
Sure.
size, like it's very small and not that built out to where
Sure.
like it's not going to make any noticeable difference. And if the skyscrapers aren't going to make a difference, what do you think that outer belt's going to do?
Even less.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the misconceptions about tornadoes come from what we can see and how we can only see a small part of this. So for a tornado to form, you need to have wind that's circulating up high, but you also have to have wind that's circulating near the ground. And you kind of have to have both of those to like, you see this funnel cloud that is, towards the ground, and people think like, well, the tornado is only that tall. But like it is going so much higher,
Sure.
and it's part of a much greater weather pattern that because you can't see it, you just don't think of it being that big. And I guess you also see like, you think about a funnel and like with a tornado, and you think, well, when I use a funnel in my kitchen, it goes from top to bottom. But I guess a lot of tornadoes will actually form from bottom up, which also kind of affects our view on how we think of them. And whenever you see like that tornado warning on the map, normally it's a big giant box. So you think of this thing like it's really wide. It's going to like level this whole area, but really like they're not that big. And it's more about like they could form in any spot in that
Right.
area at a given moment if the wind at the ground and the wind above.
Right. Everything just has to be perfect, like all happening at the same time. That's what I don't know much about it, but I know that like basically when the conditions are right, you just have to worry everywhere that the conditions are right. And you never know. And it's always a low chance. Like
Yeah.
I just learned this from these recent storms. Like there's like, those pictures that they show of like they show like Ohio, and it'll like part of it'll be green and part will be red and part will be, and it, like the red part is the really bad part.
Yeah.
Like that's basically saying like the percentage of a tornado happening in this area is the highest, and it's like if it's like 10%, that's like crazy high for a tornado, but it's like it's still such a low percentage. You know what I mean? Like the odds are always very low.
And I had never understood this, and I imagine there were plenty of other people that never understood this as well. Just be like understanding, and even just like if you think about like your percent chance of rain is a good way, like Buck kind of mentioned about like, just because you have an 80% chance of rain, but like you don't get rain at your house doesn't mean that he was wrong. It just means that you were part of the 20% that like didn't get that. And it's, I guess when you get a lot of those warnings where you're being told like, hey, there's going to be a big tornado warning. It's coming. But like the tornado warning doesn't even mean that the tornado is on the ground. Like,
Right.
So when you have that happen year after year, again and again, and you don't see any results, you start to just think, well, maybe we're special. So I wanted to know why we had so many tornadoes this year as well. And Buck said that it's mostly luck, but it is like you were saying, it is kind of just all the things coming together at the right moment. So like right now, the metaphor that he gave me was that like right now you might have all the ingredients to make lasagna in your pantry. You've got like the noodles, the tomato sauce, the ricotta, ground beef, the rest, whatever. But having all those ingredients doesn't mean that you will get a good lasagna. That like you have to layer them all just right. And even then, like there's no guarantee that you will get that outcome. But if you do it all right, there's at least a better chance that maybe it will turn out well. Like, so even then, and you get those right conditions, they all turn out well, and you get your tornado that's on the ground destroying stuff. Urban areas only make up 3% of the total land in America, which is why you associate the tornado going through the cornfield or knocking out the one house, because just there's a lot more cornfields in America.
Yeah.
So now I want to get to the heat shield theory. And this got brought up at work recently in a group chat where we had like our 4th tornado watch of the month. And one of my coworkers says like, I have faith in the Columbus heat shield that we won't get anything. And I told him like, well, I've been actually researching this recently and that you should not have faith in the heat shield. And then he says back to me like, then what are my taxes paying for, Payton? Which it feels like either like a good conspiracy theory or a good thing to run like a political campaign on this year. Like, I'm going to develop the land and prevent more tornadoes from coming. But the general idea that he's talking about here is that like the sun heats the tops of buildings and parking lots more than the trees or ground that you would find like out in wildlife. And it causes cities to be slightly warmer than nearby areas in the country. And this part is definitely true. So this is called the urban heat island. And this is like a pretty easy to measure phenomenon, I guess. And Buck has even mentioned that it can affect local weather patterns. So he's been working in Columbus for a long time in meteorology, and he's noticed that rainfall on the eastern half of town is always higher than on the western half of town. And his theory based on this is that like the winds are heating up as they're passing through downtown, and it causes that air to rise. And basically it helps to like accelerate a storm that makes it so that just the east half of town gets more rain. And it's because of the urban heat island. But when it comes to severe weather, he says that there's no measurable difference in what the tornadoes can do. So do not place your faith in the heat shield. And I was watching the news during this most recent tornado a couple days ago, and Buck was not on, but the chief meteorologist for ABC6 was there, and he said that Franklin County, where Columbus is, has the second most tornadoes of any county in Ohio on record. So if you want to like poorly interpret the data, maybe we actually are a tornado magnet.
Yeah,
and
Columbus is the worst place for tornadoes.
Exactly. And I learned the other day that the Shawnee Indian tribes in Ohio, they actually refused to settle in an area like an hour southwest, kind of between Columbus and Dayton, in the town of Xenia. And they called it the place of the devil winds because they said like, this is where all the tornadoes are at. And, people often think of Oklahoma as a big tornado hotspot, and it is, but I guess central Ohio in that area like does get a decent amount on its own. So I want to set the record straight for everyone and say that cities, whether it's Columbus or other cities, have not developed a way to avoid tornadoes. There's a long Wikipedia page of here is every major city that gets hit by a tornado in the last few years. Nashville, Miami are a few. About every, St. Louis just got leveled by tornadoes like a bunch 100 years ago. So there is a lot of documented proof of it. And no, one tornado didn't just like destroy every skyscraper in town, but like they do hit cities. And there is a lot of research being done on tornado genesis and trying to better understand it. And if you do want to learn more about that, you can listen to Buck's podcast because he started a podcast almost the same week that we started ours, which is funny. And he talks with Dr. Jana Hauser, who is a professor at Ohio State, and she specifically studies tornado genesis. This is like her thing that she's an expert on in the world. And I'll link that episode in the show notes. But if you're becoming a big tornado fan from this, I think you might enjoy it a lot. So the next time that you do find yourself in a big city and there's a tornado warning, freak out because you're not immune. But then maybe don't freak out because it'll probably miss you. Thank you for listening to the Factoid Podcast. As always, if you have a factoid you want to share with us, or if you want us to start researching something for another listener episode, just send us an email at whatsyours@factoidpodcast.com.
And as always, you can find us anywhere you find all your podcasts. It's everywhere. We're everywhere, okay? So just look everywhere and you'll find us. Or if you want, you can go to our website, factoidpodcast.com.
We'll see you in court.